Our devotion today comes from Psalm chapter 86, and today David is calling out for help again to the Lord. But before we look at that, I want to remind you today, let's remember to be in prayer for our church family. And today we are praying for Ronnie and Selena Liptrap. So we seem to have another psalm here. It's similar to a lot of the other psalms where David is calling out to God for help. He has an enemy who's coming against him, or he's gotten himself into trouble. I think it's a fair question for us to ask, why do we see this theme so strongly in the book of Psalms? I mean, Psalms runs a gambit of emotions, but so often we see David calling out for help. One of the possible reasons I could think up for that was David was a man with a lot of problems. He was constantly coming up against adversaries and in situations where he knew he needed the Lord to deliver him. Well, that's probably true. David probably did have a lot of problems. He was king over the nation of Israel, so I'm sure that came with a lot of problems. But I don't think that he probably had that many more problems than the rest of us do. I don't know that for sure. Maybe he did. I don't think any of us are going up against an army today. But I think what I'm saying is that the better reason why we see this theme so strong in the Psalms is not just because David had a lot of problems, but because he was constantly looking to the Lord for help. That's where his focus was. That was his mindset. He knew he couldn't get by without God's help. And he had a strong confidence in the Lord. And that caused him to continually reach out to the Lord for help and look to him and ask for deliverance and say, God, I need you. I got enemies coming up against me. And David has a strong confidence in the Lord that we see here. I want to point out two verses to you. The first one is verse 7. He says, in the day of my trouble, I will call upon thee, for thou will answer me. That's confidence right there. He has no doubt that God is going to deliver him in the day of trouble. He's not sure what he's going to come up against, but he is sure that God is on his side, that God is going to provide everything that he needs. Well, where does David get this kind of confidence from? Is he just arrogant? Absolutely not. I think what we see from the second verse I'm going to show you is that he gets it from, one, what he knows about the Lord, and two, from experience, from when he's trusted in God in the past and God had delivered him. Verse 13 says, for great is thy mercy toward me, and thou hast delivered my soul from the lowest hell. David had been in some pits before. We've read other Psalms. He had experienced God's deliverance. That was the reason why he knew he could take on Goliath. He had experienced the faithfulness of God. It wasn't arrogance. He wasn't looking at himself. He just trusted in the Lord. And I think that's an important message for us today, is to think back about how God's been faithful to us, to meditate on God's good deeds, on his work. Give him praise, give him thanks, but let it strengthen our faith for the battles we're going to face today. We don't know what we're going to come up against, but we've called on the Lord before, and he has pulled us out of the deepest pits. He can and will save us. Doing that helps strengthen our faith and keep our eyes in the right place. Just like David's eyes were. They were on the Lord. Didn't matter what he was going to come and encounter with. No matter how many enemies came up against him. He knew the Lord was faithful, and that's all that mattered. I pray that this scripture is a blessing to you today. I pray that it gives you peace and encourages you to seek God in a new way and to dwell in his goodness.